channel too. I'll send you the
Sweet.
video.
Okie dokie.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you so
Hi,
much for joining today. We are live on YouTube. I'm so excited because we have the Amy Levin, who rarely does interviews. So this is a very special treat. Well, rarely, you never, never do interviews. So this is a very special treat for all of us to get to know Amy a little bit better. A lot of you in the community already know her and have already taken her courses or are taking her courses. And so you probably know quite a bit about her already, but we're going to ask her a ton of questions today just to learn more about Amy. And so Amy, for those who don't know, Amy is the UK's leading all-natural chocolatier. She has been teaching online since, oh geez, when did you start teaching online?
2012.
Wow, okay, yeah. So she's been teaching online for quite a long time.
14 years, if you can't do the math that quick.
Thank you.
I've got a mathematical brain, you see?
Oh, you do? Good, because I don't. I'm like calculator all the way. Calculator. Okay, great. So yeah, Amy's been doing this for a while. And so we are just going to get right into it. I have a bunch of questions for Amy already. And then what we're going to do, once I'm through the questions, then we're going to get to questions in the chat. So if you're joining live with us today, please ask questions in the comment section and we will get to those. You can ask Amy anything. So take this opportunity to do that. So the first question that I'm going to get to is, what led you to cooking vegan vegetarian food in 2004?
Well, firstly, I was working at a place in the States called the Option Institute, and that was a vegetarian establishment. It was a personal development center that also had, it's still there, running. Has another side of it called the Sunrise Program, and the Sunrise Program treats children with autism. And so I think it was just coincidental that I went to a place that focused on vegetarian food. But then the kids ate a particular diet, which was gluten-free. I think gluten-free, refined sugar-free, I think sugar-free generally. And as I was working in the kitchen, I would prepare the meals for the children. And I started to want to do more creative stuff for them. We were pretty limited in what we could do and what you knew back then. I mean, this was 2003, 4. There wasn't a whole lot. And so I kind of got introduced to it then and also saw how it impacted their mental state to have a diet that was a lot cleaner than what they would be used to. And then I moved to England and was a little bit lost in my life at that age. I didn't go to college, so I did culinary school when I was in high school. So I was a bit lost. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I saw in the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I saw their ads and stuff online, I guess, maybe Facebook. I don't even remember if that was a thing back then. I can't remember. And I started getting into like wanting to learn nutrition because I was already naturally interested in it. So then I came back to the States and I did that. That was a year program, I believe. So I did that for a long time. Well, for that year, then I moved back to the UK. And I guess during that time, I experimented with my personal diet quite a lot. I always really liked vegetarian food and vegan food back then. I feel like it was a lot cleaner back then. Nowadays, there's a lot of questionable ingredients in vegan food and vegetarian food that I don't like anymore. But back then, it was a lot of beans and pulses and getting creative and using herbs and spices. And, you know, it was a different world back then. And yeah, so I went to nutrition school, came back, and then I wanted to be a raw food chef because I saw, as so many did back then, David Wolf speak, and he was incredibly enthusiastic and, you know, infectious in his enthusiasm. And that's when I got into the raw stuff. My first smoothie that I made was with spirulina and cocoa nibs, and I thought it was going to be like mint chocolate chip ice cream. And I did a really bad job of it, and I ended up throwing it away. And eventually I learned how to make a good one.
Nice.
And yeah, I guess it was that. So then, yeah, coming back to England, and I started working in raw food establishments. It was quite, I don't know, I kind of felt like I was led to it at the time. I sat down at my table and I opened what's called the Friday ads, which is an ad in Brighton where I was living, and went to it kind of opened directly to the page where it said looking for an executive chef for a raw vegan restaurant, which there was only two at the time. Like, I think in Brighton, in general, it was very rare back then. So then that kind of led me into the raw stuff. I don't want to over talk. I feel like I just said
Yeah,
a
no
lot.
worries. But that brings me to my next question, because that restaurant, was that SAF?
No, that was the
Mm.
food clinic. It was a kind of a cafe. So I went
Oh,
in there
okay.
and I mean, the interesting part about the food clinic was that I taught myself through raw food books to start with. So I'll lead into your next question.
Yeah.
I started through raw food books, which at the time that's all there was. There was nothing online. There was nothing. It was just like a collection
Yeah.
of maybe 10 books that you could buy, some of which were really good and held in high esteem, some of which were just not. Um, so I started learning through books, and it was a huge learning curve as a chef to go from that to drying things in a dehydrator. Like, it's quite different. And then a woman in the local community in Brighton brought Chad Sarno in to do a 2-day demo based class. And that's where I learned like lasagna, and like I feel like he did some kind of roll and like an almond pate and things like that. And it was like unlike anything anybody else was doing at the time. It was very cutting edge at the time. Kale salad,
Mhm.
it was all very cutting edge at the time. And being a chef by trade, I wanted to work with a chef and I wanted to work with the best chef in that field. So I started pursuing him for 2 years. I think I sent him an email every month, um, asking if there was a position to work with him, asking. And I remember drafting the email and being like, no, 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 don't say that. No, don't say that. No, write that again. No, don't say that. Like, I was so scared and nervous and I was so young. And I remember in the end, it was just like a line. I'd be like, hey, hope you're well. Just want to check in if there's anything I can, I just really reduced it down so it didn't seem so needy. and then, um, and then during this time, I was also working for a company called the Raw Chocolate Company, which was the first large scale raw chocolate company to open in the UK, in a warehouse, like using proper machines and all the rest of it. So that's happening side by side, but with the time that I'm in communication with Chad. And then Chad gets in touch with me one day out of the blue, um, 2 years in. And, yes, I'm looking for a personal assistant. We're opening a chain of restaurants. They're called SAF. The first one's open in Germany. Well, not the first one, but the first one in Europe is in Germany. Can you come along and train? And then that was the beginning of my journey with Chad and SAF. So I started at the Zerwerk, which was the first SAF in Munich, which actually used to be a butcher, like an old school butcher, then turned to a vegan restaurant, which is very
Yeah.
interesting. They still have the deer hooks up on the wall, like where they hung. Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
Um, and so I started training there with him and another chef called Pete Cervoni. Um, and we opened that restaurant. They left shortly after, and I stayed on for about 2 months or so after they left. And then that was sort of my training period. And then we opened in London, Staff London, which was a much more, like, the Zerwerk was still very, very, very much their own menu. But then Chad, the staff in London was Chad's baby. It was his entire menu. Um, that was an intense time. That was 90-hour work weeks for months. In the opening phases, everybody was like cracked out most of the time. I remember curling up on the floor crying one day just because it was so much. It was just in the
Oh,
bathroom, I
no.
was just crying because the general manager said something, and it just, when you're on the edge
Yeah.
and someone,
And
um,
overtired. Yeah.
overtired, hormonal, just
Yeah.
lost it. And yeah, so that it was a very stressful time. Actually, it was really interesting because so many people associate raw food vegan with health,
Hmm.
and it was the decline of my health, like the massive decline of
Mm.
my health working at SAF. I was there for a year. It gradually got worse in the time that I was there. um, I think hormonally I got completely out of balance. I was super stressed all the time. I was barely getting any time off. I was always tired. um, And so about a year in, I said, you know what, I'm done. I need to get out of here. I need to get out of London. I need to get out of this environment. I need to leave. Restaurants are super toxic, and it was no different than any other
Mhm.
restaurant.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot. I learned a lot when I was there. Chad pushed me into desserts at that time. And so I learned a lot, taught myself a lot. There were some other really good chefs that I worked with who then went on to do their own thing as well. Um, and it was a huge learning experience for me. And then I wanted to live in the countryside. So I got a job as a personal chef in the countryside for a woman who wanted to do a raw diet, but as it turned
Nice.
out, she was more into whatever. It was kind of like raw, but then also maybe a little bit of fish, and maybe like and over time she snuck other things in. So which is fine because that's what people, everybody's diets ebbs and flows. Um, so it was total countryside for 5 years, fields surrounding our house. We got a dog, grew food, all the rest of it. But when I
Nice.
first moved there, I just felt like I had retired. Like, I was like, what? That was in 2010, 9, 10 that I moved to the countryside. So I was 29. I was really young, and I felt like I went from 90 hours a week to 10 hours a week because I didn't take me long to prep our
Yeah.
meals for them. It doesn't take much time. So I remember sitting outside for the first month, drinking my smoothie in the morning, looking out at the fields, just going, man, like that's it. This is the rest of my life. I've just retired.
Sounds like a
This is crazy.
dream.
And then I got really bored. And then I got like really bored. And a
Yeah.
woman contacted me. I guess it was Facebook at the time. I was posting pictures and stuff on Facebook. And this woman contacted me and she said, I'd like to learn with you. I never thought about teaching. I'd like to learn with you. Okay. So we start back and forth, and it's a bit too expensive for her. So what if we got a group of people together? Maybe it would be cheaper. And I'm like, yeah, go on then. So that was the first class, 3 people. The class was like 8 hours long. My voice was gone by the end of it. You know what it's like when you just give everything.
Yeah.
Um,
So I don't do those
and
anymore.
Yeah, yeah, no, like, but and it's not good for the students because it's just too much.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
learn over time how to be balanced, but it's at the beginning you feel like you have to give your entire everything to everybody.
Mhm.
It's like that. So so anyway, so I started and it just snowballed. Like, I would just put it on Facebook every month, class coming up, da, 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 da. It went from the fundamentals of raw chocolate to an advanced class, fermentation, desserts, and it just slowly, and
Mhm.
then I started working with Russell James or sorry, well, yeah, Russell, the raw chef, I should say
Yeah.
probably. Um, and and then we introduced the online. So I moved in with Russ for a period back in 2012 when I left the countryside. Um, and that's when we started doing the online courses because I said, hey, look, you've got this great platform. I've got this. And I remember us sitting down with a big whiteboard and just going through each level, like just starting to draw out each level of the chocolate course. It was a really good time. It was like being at summer camp for a year. We did filming for like a year. We developed recipes together. I mean, it was just like being a kid again. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was probably one of the best times of my life. I'll always look back and love
Aw.
that time in my life. It was great. Um, yeah, so that was that really.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, and just having that partnership, working with someone on stuff like that makes such a big difference than doing it by yourself and makes it a lot funner for sure.
And he has a whole
Yeah.
skill set that I don't have.
Yeah.
Like you and I have talked about privately, like you have a skill set that I don't have. My skill set is in the kitchen. Not to say that yours isn't, but you also
Yeah.
have this other skill set where you're happy to do the stuff online. You're happy to do like your website, this, that, and the other.
Mhm.
For me, that's always been a massive point of resistance where I don't want to do it. So
Yeah.
Russ did all that. He did
Yeah.
all that stuff I don't want to do, he did. And I could just focus on recipe development. So I think, man, it was
It was the
endless.
perfect partnership.
It was a good partnership. Yeah, it was. It was good. Yeah.
That's the dream.
It
I mean,
is,
I don't
yeah.
have a choice. I have to do it. I mean, it's
Mm,
because I mean, and even finding people to work with, it's very difficult. And because everyone, always says, why don't you just hire someone or hire an assistant? And I'm like, it's not that easy. You
mm.
need like a clone of yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
But no, thank you for sharing all that. I really appreciate it. And you answered a lot of my questions in that. And yeah, that's such a good story. And I love hearing about your time as the private chef there in the countryside. And then like you said, getting bored. And so it sounds like you have a lot of drive. And but also too, just as a creative, like you're such a creative person that I totally get that. You always need to be learning something new and engaging in something different. Otherwise, yeah, you just get bored, which is why I love doing what I do, because it's something I'm learning something new every day.
Mm, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
What is your favorite thing about making chocolate?
Well, when you were just talking, when you said I love learning something new every day, I was thinking about the things that I hate. um, because for me, I think I love everything about chocolate making. I love
Oh, amazing.
everything about being, I love the coloring, I love the shelling, I love the making the chocolate itself. I mean, there's not anything in chocolate making these days that I dislike. There's things that I'd rather not do, like when it comes to stocking the stall for wintertime, it's going to be making truffles. I'm not super keen on making truffles. I'd rather not, but like, fine. Once I'm doing it, I enjoy it. I love it. So the reason I laughed is because I don't enjoy learning things I don't enjoy, right? So I don't enjoy
Yeah.
learning, you offered to teach me how to do like editing or something. And I'm like, I don't want to. I just don't want to, like appreciate it, but no, thank you.
Yeah.
So it's difficult when because I love chocolate making because, and maybe to just go a little bit more into that, I assume that was a question from somebody else.
No, that's my question.
Oh, that's your question. Okay. Um,
Because I remember too, back, you used to say that the only thing you don't like about chocolate is a mess. Do you still feel that way? Well, you're probably not messy anymore because just mastered it so much and you're so organized, right?
yeah, I mean, a couple weeks ago, I was doing some color. When you're doing something and you shouldn't, but you're doing it anyway, and a voice inside of you is like, you should really be doing this other thing. So I'm doing coloring. I have a big bowl of color. I know I shouldn't be doing it. I know there's other things I should be doing. It's that thing because I don't want to do the other things. It's on my
Yeah.
computer. so
I but
so
yeah, I would do the same. Mhm.
I've got a bowl of color. I'm not really a clumsy person. I can see the splatter of it now, actually still on the tripod. The color falls out of my hand, the bowl rolls. It's like slow motion. I see it happening. It falls on the floor and just goes. So it's on the
Oh,
ceiling, it's on the
no.
tripod, it's on my chair. I mean, it just went everywhere. Unbelievable. So yeah, I don't like mess.
Yeah.
And when I can, I control it as much as I can, but chocolate is inherently messy. So it's really
Mhm.
a case of learning how to work with it in a way that minimizes that as much as possible.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, that sucks that happened to you. It's, like the Vitamix thing when people forget to put the lid
It's
on when
yeah,
they
yeah, yeah,
don't put it
yeah,
on
that's right.
properly.
I've had all that. Yeah.
I've had
Cocoa
that happen
butter
with
is the
watermelon.
worst so far.
Yeah,
Cocoa
it was
butter is the worst because you can't get that out of fabric.
no.
There's no, because you can use a heat gun on the floor to get it out, but if it gets into an armchair, which I have downstairs, nah, that's it. That's it for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
man, too bad. I've done that with blending watermelon. I was blending watermelon and I was using a Blendtec, and I'm not used to the Blendtecs, and I thought that the lid would stay on, but they don't. But this one I was using, it just didn't stay on, and watermelon juice just
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Was an
I guess it's good
Airbnb.
it wasn't beet juice. That's good.
Yeah, thank God, but
That would
still
have
it was
that would have sucked. Yeah, that would
took
have
a
sucked.
couple hours to clean up, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's sticky. Yeah, that's right.
Mhm. Okay,
Mm.
perfect. So next question is, what is your process for developing new recipes?
Well, back in the day, just take you through a little bit of like how this has progressed because it's not, you can't really start from where I am because I've been doing it for 20 years. When I started back when I was new chef, I used recipe books. I remember Chad had a collection on the shelf that I would. There was one that was like a mango custard or something filled crepe with like a red wine reduction, and the red wine reduction was like had cardamom, vanilla, black pepper. I mean, it was totally off the wall in terms of stuff back then that I would have made. and I made a raw version of it, and it was sick. It was so good.
Nice.
So I used to take cooked stuff and make it raw, and that was how I
Yeah.
maybe taught myself how to do recipe development, because that's quite a process to take yourself through and to learn. So I think back then it was a lot of like looking at other people's stuff. How can I make that my own? Looking at cook stuff. How can I make that my own? Trying a meal out, wanting to do it myself. Bearing in mind I'm a chef, so I have a particular skill set, and it is who I am as a human being as well as a chef. So I have a particular skill set sort of innately in me that I can use to develop recipes. It's like my function in the world kind of a thing, so it's easy for me. But nowadays, and I went through my periods where, I would try and make something and it would completely fail, and I would throw it directly in the bin because it would make me angry that it didn't work. I'd get so angry, I'd throw it away. Nowadays, I try to just, I don't get angry about it because it's a process. It's a learning process. It takes a really long time. You're going to throw things out. Even now I'll make a bonbon and I don't quite like it, so I have to make it again. And it's the whole thing. It's the coloring the mold. It's the shelling. It's the this, that. It's a lot. But that's how you nail recipes, is by that, but continual going back to it. I think you said that about that cake that you just did. Like you went back to that over and over and over and over and over and over. And I think that's what people don't understand about recipe development. It's not just a boom. Sometimes it's a boom, but sometimes it's like a slow progression. Sometimes it's like you want to do something and you have to figure out how to do that thing. And that takes, like, I remember when I started developing caramel recipes without using sugar, doing it completely differently. That has taken years and years for me to learn how to make that using all different types of components and ingredients and alcohol and fruit juice and da-da-da-da. It takes years of doing it over and over and over and over and over, and shelf testing for years. I have the first one that I made still in a jar from 2020.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's still fine. No mold. Amazing. I know, it's unbelievable.
Do you still use it?
I don't, but I just keep it there. I still have it. And every time I clean up my cupboard, I'm like, why do I still have this? And I'm like, because it reminds me that this is a process that I went through, and it was very long. So anyway, back to the question. Nowadays, when I'm doing recipe development, it's typically not something I'm intending to do. It's normally like this component with this, like I have this component. What can I do with this component? What about this component? Yeah, put these together, see what happens.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't do a whole lot of recipe development these days. I did a lot for a long time, and I think I got burned out of it. So nowadays it's kind of just, I try to keep things more simple.
Yeah. And modifying what you have, because you have such a huge recipe repertoire, exactly like you said, putting components together, and where you have to reinvent the wheel. Yeah.
Yeah, reinventing the wheel is not something I want to be doing a lot of anymore.
Yeah, it is a lot. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize that. To get it, with being so picky, like to get it to the place that you want it. Yeah, like with that coconut cake that I just did, that was, I had to throw some of those away for sure. And you just like over and over and over. I think I did those cakes 7 times until I got to and imagine, the amount of ingredients. That's what too, like the amount of ingredients, like.
The other thing is that just occurred to me is part of recipe development, because this just happened to me recently. I wanted to do more fermentation, and so I started doing. I was like, I had in my mind, okay, I want to learn how to do a really epic kimchi. Like, I know that my kimchi is good, but I want it to be like this other one I buy from the shop that I love. So I went on this little bit of a journey, and it didn't take too long, maybe 2 or 3 batches of it, where I was like, you know what? I'm not feeling this. And so sometimes you have to be able to let it go. You have to be able to go, you know what? I'm not feeling that, but I am feeling this other thing over here. And then I started doing cucumber kimchi, and that was insanely good. Takes a lot less time, a lot less effort, and it's awesome. Then that led me down a fermentation hole, and I started looking up. And then do you guys have a lime pickle there?
What is it?
An Indian lime pickle.
Oh, I've never heard of it. No.
So I didn't know it was fermented. I had no idea. So it's basically like a preserved lime thing with loads of Indian spices that go in. and it's unbelievable. I've always loved it, but they put sugar in it, so I didn't want to buy it anymore. So I
Yeah.
made my own. Made my own. I
Nice.
couldn't believe it. I was so excited.
Amazing.
I know, and that's the kind of hole that I went down. I never would have expected that that's where I would have been led. But that's
Mhm.
another thing about recipe development, is to not get so stuck on what, like that cake that you were doing.
Mhm.
There could have come a point where you went, you know what, I like this and this, but I don't like this, and I'm going to go this other way. You know,
Mhm.
there's infinite possibilities, and to get stuck and to get really, really down on yourself for not getting it exactly the way that you wanted it,
Mhm.
maybe just means you need to try it a different way. Maybe that's not what's
Yeah.
meant to come out of this. You know, there's a flexibility that I think is important that you stick with, and your intuition that you can stick with, because that's where you're naturally meant to go. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, in the end, it worked out, thank God, because I was
Yeah. Yeah.
very persistent and I had a vision and I was like, nope, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I hear you though. It can, yeah, you can get really burnt out developing recipes, especially with the club that I'm running right now. It's with the live classes and the new, I'm constantly having to develop new recipes. Yeah, and sometimes it's fun and sometimes it's really challenging, but I feel like I'm constantly growing and just getting better and better. I feel like too, once you get in a flow, like when I was doing the cookbook, when I was developing recipes for that, once I got into a flow and I was just focusing on that, then it gets easy. But it's really hard to start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. Well, for me,
Mm, mm,
anyways, and
mm,
then getting
mm,
back into it.
mm.
I find that more
Yeah.
difficult. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
say hi to all the people here. So we have hi Tammy, hi Carla, hi Colleen, hi Helen.
Is
Thanks everybody
that
for
Carla
joining.
from Florida?
Yes, Carla, Raw Chef Carla.
Hi,
Yeah,
Carla.
from Miami. Yeah. Um, so we're
Carla
gonna
from
get to
Miami.
from Miami. We're gonna get to questions now from the viewers. So
Oh,
everybody who's
let's do it.
watching, yeah. Everyone who's watching, if you want to post a question in the comments, please, if you have any questions for Amy, I'm just going to read some of the comments here until we get some questions. But so Carla says, love hearing your story. I've been following you since 2008 and never knew all of these things. Colleen says, hi, Amy and Crystal. You know Colleen from Edmonton.
Colleen Heidecker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. 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 Hi, Colleen.
And Tammy said she had blueberry on the ceiling once.
Yeah.
Carla had chocolate on the ceiling last week. Oh my
Oof,
gosh.
Christ.
Helen says, Amy rocks my world.
What's that? Is that Helen Rodriguez? Who
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that?
yeah. Helen
It's Atron?
Rodriguez.
Oh, what up,
Okay, so Tammy's just asking, I'm wondering how both of you stay focused on one avenue, like just chocolate. I'm so intrigued with everything. My brain wants to try it all.
What does Tammy do
You
for a
wanna
living?
answer that
What is
first? She has a bakery called Happy Cakes, and she does baked and raw vegan desserts and cakes.
Sorry, can you read the question again?
I'm wondering how both of you stay focused on one avenue, like just chocolate, for example. I'm so intrigued with everything. My brain wants to try it all.
I think we're different people because my brain doesn't have that mechanism. My brain's like what you just said about your cookbook. If I'm doing the cookbook, I'm doing the cookbook and that's all I'm doing. Like I
Yeah.
get quite one single track mind because for me, and that's why I say I think we're just different people in that way,
Mhm.
Tammy and I, because if I can't do 100 different things, I don't do well with that. It makes me feel anxious even thinking about it. Um, yeah, I can't. Even when I was doing the fermentation recently, I find that hard to balance, even though it just takes a couple minutes because you're just putting stuff in a jar and putting it aside. It takes so much of my energy, and then I start thinking about it all the time. I couldn't
Mhm.
have multiple things like that because I would feel like I couldn't properly focus on that one thing I'm doing. I can maybe do that and have a chocolate thing on the go, but I couldn't possibly do multiple of that.
Yeah.
So I think it just for me, it's just like I have the things that I'm focused on, and I focus on those things. And if something new comes in, I take it one thing at a time. So I wouldn't focus on doing 5 new things at a time, because that would be way too overwhelming for me.
No, I'm the same as you. And unfortunately, everything gets thrown at me all at once sometimes. Like right now, I'm supposed to be working on a bunch of different things, but I can't. And when you do that, when you're doing too many things at once, then one thing is not as good as you want it to be, instead of if you were just focusing on, yeah, that one thing at a time. So
Mm.
I'm the same. Yeah, so unless Tammy, if you can do it all at once, then do that, and if you can multitask. But yeah,
Yeah.
I have to really focus on one thing at a time, one project at a time. Otherwise, it just something along the line just is not as good quality as I want it to be, right?
Yeah, you lose track of the details, I think.
Yeah, and like you said, it takes so much energy, and especially because you're thinking about it all the time. And everything is a lot of research for all of these culinary and creative projects. So,
Seriously. Yeah, for sure.
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah. So thank you. That was a good answer. So Carla's just asking, do you ever feel uninspired in your business and recipes? And if so, how do you get out of the rut?
Yes. Uh, well, I'll tell you, I'm not one to take time off and go away and take myself away and do something. Like, it's not like me. You just went away for a week. Like, it's just, I don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, for various reasons. At the beginning of the year, so last autumn was insane with chocolate, like sales, production, most I've ever done in my life. And when it came to January, I was so tired and I couldn't refresh. Like, I just thought, maybe if I just take a few days off, like, I'll refresh. But my home is my work, so I'm
Mhm.
surrounded by my work all the time. So then I took myself off for 2 days, and I stayed in a what they called anyway, in a very isolated, secluded luxury hut. That's what I call a hut, like a shepherd's hut, and it has
Nice.
a wood burning stove and running water, electricity, all the rest of it. But it felt like, yeah, it was incredible. I mean, I've told you in our recent conversations, I just love nature, isolation, being alone. Is really important for me. And when I came back from that, even when I was away, stuff just started coming to me. Like, and it was just getting away um, from my normal environment helped a lot. And when I got
Mhm.
home, I did feel better. It wasn't 100% because then I got sick. It was a whole thing at the beginning of the year for me. Um, but I think stuff like that, taking time away, but really getting away from your work completely, not
Mhm.
being in your work environment. You need to get away from that environment completely. Don't tell yourself you're going to work a little bit while you're away. Just completely take that week off, and then see what happens. If you feel drawn to work, then work. There's a reason for that. But to go with the intention that it's your time to be away. I think that. What
Yeah.
about you?
No, the same, because yeah, that's why I had to go away last week. I was so burnt out. I mean, the last time I took a break was in November, and like you, I don't take days off. I think I had 4 days off this whole year that I had taken, and I was yeah, just like ready to quit. So I was like, obviously I need to go away, take a break. So it was a total last minute thing. And it was the only week that I had to do it. But like you said, it's impossible to relax in at home because like you said, it's my work environment. So if I'm at home, that's all I'm thinking about is work and that's all I'm doing. Yeah. So getting out in nature and going to Bend. I don't know if anybody here has ever been to Bend, Oregon. It's literally one of my favorite places. I just it was you would hate it, Amy, because it was 40 degrees Celsius every day and
Yeah.
sunny,
No, thank you.
but
No,
the
thank you.
nature there is just beautiful, and I chose to go there because there was lots of food I know that could nourish myself so that I didn't have to, because I needed a break from making food, right? I just didn't want to make food anymore for on vacation, and I knew I could get sun and nature, so Yeah, so Carla just booked. Carla, you didn't tell me she just booked a 10-day Vipassana for later this year, and I've done that. I did that in 2018. It was one of the best things I've ever done, and I've always wanted to go back, but it's so hard to electronically shut off your entire business for 12 days to go do that. But wow, Carla, that's amazing. You're gonna love it. Have you ever done Vipassana, Amy?
No.
No. Would you ever do it?
When I was in Brighton, somebody that I knew had done it, and he came back and he said that by the end of it, he could hear his blood running through his veins.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
So I had a very similar experience
yeah.
and it freaked me out. No, I'm serious. I had a very similar experience. I wrote about it in my blog because I thought that this is what I was going to be feeling for the rest of my life because you get so enlightened. You're so now hyper aware of everything. But for me, I could feel every single like micro droplet of like moisture on my skin. And it was
Mm,
very intense. So every time I went
mm,
outside, I could feel this and I could never
mm,
feel it before. And I panicked because I said, oh my
mm,
God, is this what I'm going to feel now for the rest of my life? But thank God, no. Like the next morning I woke up, it was gone. But
mm.
yeah, so did he say that he felt that for the rest of his life or was it just temporary?
I think it was just temporary. Yeah,
Yeah, it'd
I
totally
think.
just be a
Yeah.
temporary thing. Because when you get back thrown into, your everyday life, you don't have the ability to be so hyper aware anymore.
Mm,
But
yeah.
Carla, you're going to be fine. Carla, it was one of the best things, the noble silence. I loved the noble silence. And at the end, on the last day, you stopped noble silence. And I remember I was in the dining hall eating lunch and it was so loud. I had to just leave and go back to my room. It was very intense and too hard to handle for me. So just ease back into civilization slowly. Um, Okay, so Carla has another question. When I'm playing with recipe testing, I get to a point where I cannot even look at it. My stomach just feels awful from taste testing. Any tips or tricks?
We were just talking about this last week. Spit it out, girl.
Yeah,
Spit it out.
yeah.
Taste it, roll it around in your mouth, get the full vibe of it, throw it away. That's how you do it.
I know. That's so hard for me because I don't have much control when it comes to when I'm tasting. I'll eat like an entire piece and then I have to eat an entire piece the next day. And then, so I really need to take that advice.
Yeah.
But Carla,
Yeah,
I
it'll save your
totally
life.
get that.
Mm.
But good for you. Um, so yeah, Carla's super excited about her Vipassana. Does anybody have any other questions for Amy before we close out? This has been a fun chat. I'm so happy we have lots of people on here.
Hey, Trod, what else are you doing right now while you're watching the interview / listening to the interview? She's notorious for multitasking.
Who, H-Rod? Helen?
Yep.
You
Helen
call her
Rodriguez,
H-Rod?
H-Rod. You know, she works for NASA.
No, really?
Yeah, she's wicked smart.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yep.
So she's probably working right now.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm telling you. She's probably
Yeah.
either working or doing a triathlon, one or the other.
Oh my. Amazing.
Yeah, she's been on my classes before where she's like, I'm just driving home. I'm like, you're on the class. Yeah, just driving home. I'll be there in a minute. Also, what are you doing? I'm just riding on my bike.
I have lots of students like that too. Oh, she's in a work meeting right now. But I
Okay.
have lots of students like that too. And I'm like, oh, I could never join like a meeting or a class in my car. I just, while I'm
No.
driving or like, no, I
Yeah.
have to be focused. We have
Yeah.
Sebastian who just joined us. And he says, super stunned to witness two icons of the raw chocolate world. Well, I wouldn't say Amy's more the icon of the raw chocolate world, but he
Is
also said he's
Sebastian where's Sebastian from? France.
I don't know, Sebastian, where are you from? His YouTube name is Sebastian Phoenix. He
I'm
says, I've been
wondering if
trying
that's
to create chocolate wafers. I've been trying to create chocolate wafers a roll stick Raw, vegan, gluten-free, allergy-free, organic, the most natural possible, but has not been successful, nor seen anybody making or selling them. Seems challenging, but impossible to keep them crunchy and like the original. I don't know. Do you know what he's talking about? What's a chocolate wafer roll or stick?
I would assume it's the where it's like a wafer and then it's covered in chocolate, but it's almost like a chocolate curl, but the curl is made of wafer. And then
Oh, these
it's dipped
things.
in
I
chocolate.
see.
I think that's
Yeah,
what
are
he's
these
talking
like
about.
popular in the US or the UK?
I don't know.
Cream-filled wafers. Well, chocolate is hard to so when you're doing chocolate like that in the dehydrator, you definitely can't have cacao butter or anything like that because then it just melts.
Yeah, but I think what he would have to do is he'd have to make the wafer first. It's like if you were going to try and recreate a Ferrero Rocher. You'd have to
So the ones
create the
I'm
little
looking at, they're like
crispy
chocolate.
thing.
The chocolate and the wafer is all like rolled in the one wafer.
Oh, well, that's probably a cream and not like a. Yeah, I see what you
Yeah,
mean.
cream.
There are some things, Sebastian, that you just cannot do with all of those requirements that you're putting on top of it. Sorry to say.
Yeah.
Sometimes you
Oh,
gotta
yeah.
something has to give sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he says like pyrroline. So this, I'm seeing these right here. Pyrroline rolled wafers. He's in Mexico. Sebastian's in Mexico. Yeah, thanks for joining, Sebastian. Does anybody have any other questions before we close? Tammy says she loved the ice cream bars and she ate most of them. Didn't really share. Oh, your sound is gone, Amy. Can you guys still hear me? Or are you using your mic and it
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I can hear you now.
Hang on. Talk for a minute.
Yeah, okay, no worries. So thanks everyone for joining. I really appreciate it. Carla, yeah, we'll talk about that. How are we dealing with the absurd prices of cacao butter and cacao paste? Um, yeah, the cacao prices unfortunately are just totally crazy right now.
I think I've
Hi,
got a couple
Donna.
minutes.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, I've got a new battery, but I don't know how long it's gonna last for.
Yeah, no worries, because my mic is also too about to expire. So, but we're gonna close out anyway.
Okay.
Uh, does anyone have any more questions before? Oh, Carla wants to know, Amy, how you're managing with the absurd cacao prices.
You know, that's how. Mostly the thing that affects me is cocoa butter, not so much
Yeah.
the paste. Paste hasn't gone up just yet for me. The cocoa butter is still only 24 pounds a kilo here, but it was 13 pounds a kilo, so it's quite a jump. I don't know, Carla. Time will tell. Hopefully, it'll be over soon. You know what I mean?
Hopefully, they say it's going to go up even more, but hopefully, I mean, we dealt with this with vanilla for so long, right? And it was the
Yeah.
vanilla crisis, and then now it's evened out again. So hopefully, but yeah, for everyone who's doing chocolate, you just got to raise your prices, and people just got to be okay with that because you still got to make money. You're not working for free.
Unless you are working for free. Can you still
Yeah.
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, but we're going to close out anyways.
All
But
right, go ahead.
yeah, Amy, I'm going to close out, but I want you to stay in the studio before I let you go. So don't end anything. I'll just end the live, but stay where you are. So thank you everybody so much for joining. I really appreciate it. This was a fun chat. You can check out Amy's live stream bundle. So I have the link in the YouTube description and my 10% off coupon code. So you can sign up for her live stream bundle classes at 10% off using coupon code Crystal. And I'll also just put it here in the comments as well, just so that you have it. I really highly recommend her classes. I learned from Amy. She's just absolutely an amazing teacher. And she has a lot. Oh, you even added more bundles. Yeah, she has lots of good bundles here. So make sure you check those out. Use coupon code Crystal to get 10% off. So she is extending that discount to you. I'll put that here. So thank you everyone so much. Thanks for joining. Mwah. Thanks, Tammy, Carla, Ellen. I always do that like at the end of my class. I just love my students so much. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining. I hope you all have a wonderful day. This recording is going to be on YouTube, so you can watch it back if you missed some of it. And, if you have any comments or questions, put them in the comments in the YouTube video. So thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day.